In today's episode, I sit down with Richard Stone from Project Management Blueprint. Richard openly shares his journey from working in a local pub washing dishes to being an operations manager in a large construction company. We both discussed reasons for using alcohol as a crutch for surviving whilst working under high pressure jobs. Richard even opens up about dealing with employees with drug and alcohol addictions too. Fantastic episode, and we get into lots and lots of different topics.
So, how are you feeling about the podcast? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah. It's funny. When I first set up the training business in 2019, one of the very first things I did was start a podcast. But back then, I was really focused on getting a big name guest.
Right.
It was always about the quality of the guest and how many listeners I thought that would bring in.
Okay.
And of course that ran into COVID, so it was like 2020 when I started doing that. And I even paid for my idol is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
And I even paid an agent to get his email address.
Right.
150 quid. I didn't know anything about the space then.
Yeah.
I sent over an email to Arnie's agent, and they were like, nah. The thing I found with COVID and with Zoom was people found it really easy and convenient to cancel because they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't feel like anyone was valuing my time. I'd not really built a personal brand back then, and it was like, let's get as many large profile names on it as possible. I got a couple of Americans on that I knew, and it was I enjoyed it, but I found it really stressful in getting people booked, making sure they turn up and releasing an episode when I said I would. But this time round it was, and because of that previous experience, I didn't really want to start a podcast again. It was Paris's idea, let's start a podcast. And I obviously shared my thoughts and feelings about the first time I did it. And she was like, well, let's get a load recorded first. Yeah. Release them, I think it was once a month she started. So I think we did 6 in the bag. So we'd got 6 months worth of recordings. So then all the pressure was off. And also because it's in person, I enjoy it a lot more. I've now got more experience speaking. I've got more experience. I've got a bigger network, built a personal brand, and all them things really, really help. And we've got a great space to do it, and I'm not doing it in my son's bedroom anymore.
Yeah, which is one of the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. So, like, doing it in person, I think, has been the biggest benefit. Weirdly, people are more inclined to want to come in person than they did on Zoom. People have made the journey. I don't think we've had anyone cancel fucking line. We had someone cancel yesterday. So that was the only cancellation we've had out of, I think we're on episode 20 now, which is fucking great.
It's pretty good going.
Yeah. So thanks for coming up, mate.
That's right. Thank you for inviting me.
Richard Stone.
Good spear.
So I had that all prepared, what I was going to say there. So after speaker, mentor, expert in the construction industry, like me.
Yeah, exactly. 2 peas in a pod almost.
Yeah, so how did you get there? What's the background? What's the story?
So my dad was in construction. He was a QS.
Yeah.
He worked for John Lang's, and he wanted to do a wraparound extension on a house in Birmingham where I was born. But being a QS,
Brummie?
I'm a Brummie. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm all right. You can edit that bit out. So he wanted to do this extension, but being a QS, he knew exactly how many bricks, how many bits of timber, how many millilitres of paint to treat the fucking wall plates and everything. Yeah. So he project managed it, brought all the trades in. So I was involved in like digging footings, but there's photos of my mum, bless her, on a Kango, gunning up concrete. And one of the opening pictures I use when I speak is a picture of me and my brother and my dad in a footing. And I was 5, my brother was 3. And going through that process and like taking all them materials, like what come off of a lorry, and creating something in me was just like, this is cool as fuck.
Yeah.
This is wicked. We've just built that. Now, I played like the smallest part, like digging a bit of mud and shoveling some bricks around and clearing up after the brickies and clearing all the shit out under the scaffold when it was like a Pudlock scaffold. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
Single handrail, no toe boards.
Yeah.
But I also remember...
Still see them on sites today.
Yeah. Some of them, I had a conversation with a property trainer about that last week, actually, and he told me I was talking about. But yeah, I remember some of the other stuff as well, so some of the conversations. So it was a flat roof, and it was felt, 3-layer felt. And my dad left the scaffold up for the roofers. And I remember vividly, because my dad used to go and pick some of the guys up every morning, and he'd come back and we was with him, and the roofers were there, and I'm like, what's all this scaffold that's in the way? my dad was like, well, I've left it up to make it easy for you. He was like, mate, I'll just run up a ladder with a bucket of hot biscuit. And it's things like that I've never forgotten. I'm like, that's like the basics of like actually like running a project properly. So that's kind of like when I first fell in love with it. And then, so I was born in Birmingham, lived there till I was 8. He got promoted.
Your dad?
Yeah, and he got moved from one division of Langs to another. So we moved to Bristol. So I went from talking like a brummie to basically being moved into this like little village school in a village outside Bristol, talking like a brummie. Well, at 8, all the kids have kind of found their like little cliques, like they know who they want to be pals with. So this geezer comes in from a different part of the world, talking really differently. But also what became apparent was different parts of the country teach different subjects at different points. So I was about 3 years ahead in maths, which made me then look like a smart ass as well. So they hated me because I talk funny. They all wanted to have a dig at me because I was quite big. And then I was the one that was getting the answers right. So I was kind of like on a hide into nothing. So I got bullied quite a lot. And my mum got a job in the local pub, working there. And they wanted somebody to help do washing up and stuff. So I did that. And then they were like, actually, the guy who does bottling up, like, he's not really turning in. Do you want to do that? So it was really cool. So I got a job washing up in the kitchen. I used to get £20 a week. And I used to pay the bullies. I used to give them like 3 or 4 quid. But to them, that was like a lot of money to go and spend on sweets. But it meant, and it's totally wrong, I get it, and I would not advocate doing it, but it was my way of getting where I wanted without just having loads of ag, because I fought them, and I won a few, I lost a few, I got lumps took out of me, I got like booted out of lessons and shit. So I knew that wasn't really the way. So I just found my own way of doing it. And I said to my mum, like, I've washed it up at home, but it's a job. You should always do 2 things. Always be early, like I was today for this, and always, if you get to the end of what they've asked you to do, I'll say, I've finished, can I do something else? And no one else had ever done that, doing that job. So they were like, okay, well, do you want to do starters? Do you want to come in and do the bottling up? So within about 3 months, I was working in a pub Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday lunchtime. The landlord had got a son and daughter. The daughter her boyfriend was a scaffolder, and their son was a landscaper. And they were like, you're in the cellar, like moving barrels around early in the morning? Like, do you want to come and unload all this turf? So this geezer had an articulated lorry load of turf delivered. And he wanted me to go and help him on a Saturday, and we was in the pub by 12 o'clock. But I was sitting the other side of the pub. I was behind the bar. I was sitting in front of the bar, and I had a couple of beers. And then the son-in-law was like, what's he doing? He's normally in the kitchen. And I leave him alone. So the son protected me and was like, shut up, leave him alone. He's all right, he's with me. And he was like, what? So a couple of weeks later, they were like, do you want to come and like basically labour for us scaffolding? So I was like, well, how much are you going to pay me? And he was like, well, you cheeky little sod. But how much did he give you? I went, he gave me 60 quid. He went, no, he didn't. I've asked him to give you 40, you little git.
That'd have been me, that.
Yeah. So I saw it as a bit of a route to kind of like live the life I wanted to. And then when I was 13, my dad got promoted again, and we moved from Bristol to Buckinghamshire. And I refused to go. I was the most obstinate little sod. I didn't want to leave my job. I'd got my life pretty nailed. So I was working in the pub. I was working for them. Like sometimes I'd like wag school and go and work for them. And then I was working in a transport cafe backing in lorries as well. If I went to
school.
And
what age is this? Like 14, 15?
No. From 11 to 13.
11 to 13. Yeah.
Yeah. So at 13 we then moved. And that was horrible. Hated it. Didn't really fit in at school. There was one kid on my first day at school that I spoke to and got on all right with, who sadly then took his life a few years ago, and we were really good mates. But most of the other people were kind of like, because by then their social circles were even tighter. So someone new coming into school, like they don't really want to talk to you. So the first opportunity I got out, and I just went like literally working. Yeah. Literally working. So I was labouring for scaffolding companies, labouring for fencing companies. I was putting fencing jobs up.
This in your early teens?
Yeah, in my early teens, yeah. I was putting fencing jobs as soon as I could drive. I went and got a van. Was really fortunate. I went labour only. So literally, like we would just get given a set of site drawings, like, and they'd be like, right, there's 6,000 panels, there's 1,000 metres of close board. So I brought in 2 or 3 geezers to work for me. And I found that really hard because like they were older than me. And then recession was not nice, we know that. So I basically got told by a mentor, like I didn't see him, didn't pay him, he wasn't an official mentor, but he was a QS for Langs, for David Wilson Homes. And he was like, you're really smart. Like you're doing the books for that scaffolder, you're doing this already, like you need to use your brain and not your body. So I was like, okay. So basically I put myself through night school, did ONC, HNC and building studies. And when I come out, he was like, but you're still fencing. So he said, you need to get a CV together and put a CV out to recruitment companies. And I was like, what? What the fuck have French cars got to do with like jobs? And he looked at me and we were having dinner and he was like, are you thick?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? He went, what? What are you on about French cars? I said, well, I'm not, you are. You're talking about CVs. What are you talking about? He went, a curriculum vitae. I didn't even know what it meant.
Yeah,
We never got taught that shit at school. So I didn't have a clue. So he helped me put together a CV. So we did that, sent it to this company, and then he explained to me what recruitment consultants were. And I could not comprehend that. It's a bit like property investors can't comprehend CDM. I could not understand, right?
Yeah.
What I was like, mate, that's a pimp, innit?
Yeah.
What they make money out of selling me to another company, that's pimping.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
It was like, just shut up and do it. So I did it. They got my CV. They got me 4 interviews and I got 3 job offers in the first week.
Nice. This is in your early teens still?
So yeah, I was 20 at that point.
Yeah.
So I went with the one that made me the first offer.
As we do.
Purely and simply because I felt like they'd taken a gamble with me. Like, they'd seen other candidates. So if they were going to gamble on me, I'd repay that what they saw. So I started there as a trainee site manager.
You went straight into management at 20?
20. So I went straight into site management. I was running 3 big refurb jobs in London, in Shepherd's Bush for a housing association. So I did those 3 projects. They were over the moon. So they signed me off as site manager. Went on and did 6 projects for Bedford Estates in central London. They went really well. Our QS got really ill. He was in his late 60s. And there was a few issues around the numbers, that things he'd not picked up and stuff. But because I wanted to learn and I'd done surveying at college, I started looking at all the numbers. So I'd get up at 4 o'clock, 2 cans of Red Bull, box of Pro Plus, drive into London down the motorway, run the sites all day, come home, and then literally I'd got an old computer that this client had knocked us for a fencing job. I'd never even switched it on, didn't even know how it worked, right? And this is how I learned that Excel's got tabs, right? This is proper confession time. So I was saying to this client, Michael, his name was, like, you've not sent me the spec for like these other 3 buildings. He was like, no, I have. No, you haven't. I've only got like this one block, Chalk Farm Road. He went, it's there. And it was on another tab. I never knew. So I looked a right prick and he sent me the same spreadsheet about 4 times. And in the end, he was like...
At least you were in your 20s when you found that
Yeah.
out. I was like 41 before I worked that out.
So I sorted out all the numbers, but went through, did a complete financial reconciliation, looked at how much profit there was, and there was more profit on the job. So they were like, we think you should maybe look like operationally great, but actually, do you want to look at the QSing and the commercial management side of it? So I was like, okay, I'm open to learning anything, whatever. And I quite liked the numbers. I'd always been quite good at maths. My nan used to say I was murder around a pound note. So I always loved that side of it. So I was like, okay. So I sort of moved more into the commercial stuff, but always sort of still had a big input on the ops side of it, which sometimes caused a bit of challenge and a bit of conflict because people didn't like that. It was always kind of like that sort of divide and conquer, really. You got to be one or the other. But I really enjoyed it. So I went from that into QSing, went from QS to contracts manager, then commercial manager. We then tried to do a management buyout with the chairman's agreement, and the day before we were due to sign it, he refused to accept it.
Right. I mean, that's well, I say that's not a traditional career path through the industry. We've gone from a production function into a commercial function, then back into production and back into commercial. I mean, that's obviously going to set you out from a diverse skill set, but it's not a traditional
That's not at all.
career path, is it?
And do you know what? For a long time, I had a big hang-up about it.
Yeah.
So I was running projects. I mean, at one time, we'd have 30, 40 big projects on at a time in London with a team. But I had massive age-based phobia. I thought people just wouldn't take me seriously for my age. To the point I was contemplating. I even bought the stuff to dye my hair grey.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
Fuck, mate, do you know when it's so funny you say that? When I left the forces, I left the army in 2007, so I was 32 at the time. And I went from an industry, I went from the military where, generally speaking, and this touches on what you just said, generally speaking in the army, seniority and rank came with age.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, again, to look at an older gent, you would assume that they're of a higher rank and therefore of more experience. And when I left the army, when I was 32 years old, I got dumped into, I got a job in corporate management of construction. And I joined this company as a project manager. straight in there, probably like one down
Wow.
from the
Pretty good.
from the MD at this particular organisation, and all the site managers that reported into me were all older than me, and I had this same thing. What did you call it? Age-based
bias.
Age-based bias. And I was sat there chairing a meeting in my first week of employment, and my site managers, my reports, were in the 60s, and I was sat there like, they're not going to fucking listen to me. 60-year-old men, and I'm here at 32 in my mum's car because I didn't have a fucking car, and I was sat there like, right lads, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z, and all I'm thinking was that imposter syndrome, that feeling of
it's huge, isn't it? And it's so real.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I can almost feel myself back in that situation right now, just sitting having this conversation.
Yeah,
it's super real. Yeah,
funny old thing, isn't it?
It's weird, isn't it? And I still get it now, like sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What,
sometimes.
the age thing?
No, not the age thing. The imposter syndrome, definitely. I don't get the age thing, not at all.
That's because you're an old bastard now.
Yeah. Do you know what? I went to physio yesterday for my hip.
Were you fucking 2 new hips?
I had the first appointment at 8:30. And I'd not seen my physio because she was off last time, so I saw someone different. And she was like, I'm so pleased with your progress. She was like, but just to manage your expectations, you're never going to play rugby again. I was like, are you fucking kidding? Yeah. She went, no, seriously, you can't play rugby again. And she was like, what's on your bucket list? And I was like, I'd love to like get back into horse riding. She went, that's never going to happen either. And I went, for fuck's sake, can you just give me some good news? She went, I need to just tell you, men of a certain age. And I went, listen, I've been in construction 40 years, right? I've been on sites for 40 years. I said I've been spat at, I've been shot, I've been called every name under the sun, but I've never been so fucking insulted as what you just said. And all these other like physios and PTs were looking around and they just all started, they just erupted into laughter. They went, we don't get taught how to manage that.
Yeah.
I said, but what? I'm in my 40s. Men of a certain age. I said, and I'm not going to play walking football.
Yeah, I mean, we are pretty much the same age. You're 47, right? Yeah, same as me.
Same.
When's your birthday?
23rd of June.
June. 23rd of June.
23rd of June.
You're 3 days older than me.
No way.
Yeah.
Hey, well.
That's mad,
I said we're 2 peas in a pod, didn't I?
Yeah. So that makes you the old bastard and I'm the younger one of the two. Amazing. So, listening, like in my corporate career, I certainly know the stresses that I certainly faced when managing large projects. And for me, I think a lot of it, again, I wasn't taught how to manage this as a human being. I wasn't taught how to manage this as a manager as well. The company I was worked for, they was just fucking get on with it.
Absolutely.
Get thrown in at the deep end and blah, blah, blah. And I was, as I just said, I was put into a role managing serious amounts of money, managing serious numbers of people, contracts, clients. And I just left the fucking army as a bricklayer. And it was like, and I know I have to take responsibility for that transition, but I was never taught to manage stress at all. And
none of that stuff. None of that soft stuff gets taught.
Managing projects, people, money, clients' expectations is a very stressful thing.
Yeah, it is.
Now, as you know, and I think it's the reason that we agreed to come and have this chat, I used to manage my stress then with the old Brewdog Punk IPA beer, Merlot or Shiraz, depending on what was on offer in Tesco. If it was on at £6, I weren't fucking paying that. I was going for the £5 a bottle. And my wife used to drink this really fucking naggy red wine called Jam Shed. Did you drink red wine?
I used to. I'm not allowed to drink anymore because of my colitis. It's one of my triggers.
This stuff was called Jam Shed, and it was proper sweet red wine, and it was literally tasted like jam. It was fucking horrible.
You're not selling it.
Oh no, my missus used to drink that, so it was on the way home. I'd have 5 pints on the way home, calling at the pub. Then I'd call in at Tesco, pick up 2 bottles of red, one for me, one for a bottle of Jam Shed for the missus, and a bottle of Merlot or Shiraz, whatever was cheapest for me. And then we always had a 3-litre bottle of Jack Daniels in the house, which took 6 days to drink. And that was me on a daily basis. That's how I managed stress. You two have had drink problems yourself in the past,
massively. Yeah, I mean, drink and drugs. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be fucking raw and honest. Both. It's one that I think it's like the first thing we said about having a conversation around. But I've also had over 6 or 7. I was trying to work it out the other day. Instances where I've also had people within my team that I've either been a direct report or somebody that's been lower down the structure that I've had to dismiss as a consequence of those situations as well. So I'm quite happy to have that conversation and what that looks like, because that's a whole different mindset.
Yeah. Let's stick on you though to start with.
Yeah.
So was booze a crutch for stress?
Massively, it was huge.
Yeah.
It was
and what did that look
massive.
like for you?
Lunchtimes. was quite often. I was on sites when we used to go to the pub lunchtime and have 5 pints of Guinness, and then literally you'd be like straight back out of the pub, straight back on site, in the pub on the way home, bottles of wine, beer. The first time I noticed it was bad was when Tesco's first started delivering, and we used to get 36 bottles of wine delivered a week.
Fucking hell! What's that, like late 90s, early noughties?
Yeah, early noughties, yeah. Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, I was earning a lot of money, but it wasn't to live to that lifestyle. It was because it was a crutch. You know, I've lost a couple of friends to suicide. I've had issues with like people within like friends and family and stuff that just weren't dealt with, because you don't get taught that stuff at school. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they don't teach you how to manage money, and they don't teach you how to manage your emotions, which is massively like should be taught. So you're just like, well, you're trying to deal with and process whatever shit's going on, and at the same time trying to smash it and push it as a career. And I think people reach out for different stuff. I think different people have got different types of personalities. One of the things I've learned from doing a lot of work on myself is I've got an addictive personality.
Yeah, me too.
I know that about myself, you know. Yeah. I mean, I don't drink anymore, I'm teetotal, but I've replaced my addiction for that with my addiction with training and with work. Yeah. And it's why my career did what it did, because I invested so much time in doing it. Yeah. But yeah, I would have like 3 or 4 bottles of wine a night, no drama at all. Like not even think about it. That would just be like normal. Like,
what was the awareness point? What was it that made you go, this is fucking too much? And was Gemma the same, by the way?
No, so this was before me and Gemma got together, because we've only been together 13 years. So I was actually living on my own at this point. I had a couple of instances where I came very, very close to ending up in a ditch. I also had an instance where I was about 2 million quid out on a final account. And I was like, fuck. And I've always had the kind of, like someone said to me yesterday actually, how is it you know that a number's wrong on a spreadsheet without knowing the detail? I'm like, it's just a gut thing. You just know. Totally. And I caught it in myself. And 2 days later, I literally just ran the house, took every bit of alcohol, and I put it down the sink and I smashed the fucking bottles against the wall in the bin shed, because I was so angry at myself. Not the damage I was doing to myself, but actually that I'd let it get in the way of my career. Because my career cost me my first marriage. It cost me my relationship with my stepson, because I literally I was 150 miles an hour into it. And I was like, I've invested so much in this and I'm letting this get in the way. But there was grief, there was all sorts of shit that I'd not dealt with. And it was just that, do you know what, I'm just going to blot it out. During the day I could blot it out with work by being like flat out at it. But when you're not in that work environment, those things start coming back from the back of your filing cabinet to the front. And it was just a massive suppressant of I can't deal with that. I don't want to deal with it. I'm not equipped to deal with that. I don't want to have that conversation with someone because I know the damage it's going to potentially do. So blot it out. I'm not proud of it, but
it's a powerful. It's a powerful thing to share. I think it's really important for us as what I believe to be industry leaders is to call this out and raise people's awareness to the fact that drinking high volumes of booze changes fucking nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, it makes it worse.
It does make it worse, way worse.
In the moment, we think that that's the solution.
Yeah, because it's the only solution you can see.
Yeah, and it's the only one we know as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I've come from the military where fucking booze is life, and then I came into the construction industry where it's a lot the same.
It's absolutely the same.
What do you do on a Friday afternoon in the industry? We go to the pub and get fucked up, and that spills into Saturday. You write off your Saturday morning. The only way you can make yourself feel better is to have another pint.
Get back on the lash.
Yeah, and then so Saturday dinner, the day session starts.
Massively, yeah.
Then you get fucked up to Saturday night, and then you wake up Sunday morning and I'm not drinking today. 12 o'clock comes round. Mrs. has got the Sunday dinner on. You go to the pub for 3, and that becomes fucking 10. And you come home.
They kick you out at 3 o'clock when the pub used to shut.
Yeah, that's it. And then you just went to work on the Monday all fucking messed up.
Yeah, it's relentless.
Yeah, if you actually made it in on Monday
If you made it in and didn't do the Monday shift, which is like used to be so common. Yeah, I think it's a bit less common now, but it still very much exists. You still see it.
And
still see lots of people having that conversation.
That weekend cycle, I'll call it a weekend cycle, for me just grew into the week.
Yeah, it does. It just bleeds into it.
Yeah.
Massively bleeds into it. I mean, if you go like anybody that works in London, like for them, the weekend starts on Thursday.
Yeah.
It's just a culture. That's just when the weekend. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Tomorrow's work. What are you on about? The weekend starts now. No, today's Thursday. Yeah. But for them, It starts on a Thursday.
So quitting booze, then the new addiction became work, training, driving, progress into that.
Yeah.
For me, it was caffeine, and still is. You know, I went from, I quit booze 22nd of September 2018, and then the very next day, I didn't start drinking coffee then, but I started to appreciate coffee then.
I think,
because before that, coffee was a cure for hangover, cure for I feel shit.
Yeah, it's a tool to do a different job then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then I started the next day. I was like, fucking hell, I can actually taste that coffee. That was really nice.
Yeah.
And I remember the day I quit the booze, when I said no more. The following morning, I was staying in a hotel at the time, and the following morning I woke up and had breakfast in this hotel I was staying in the restaurant with a guy called Simon Wynn. He was a floor layer, and he had sniff problems. And we sat having this conversation. I said, I didn't have a fucking beer last night, first time in like 5 years. And he was like, I didn't have any sniff either. And we had this open, frank conversation.
Wow.
Really connected in that moment. And he was probably the only person I confided in at the time that did actually have a drink problem, because no one else knew. And we sat there having the coffee, and it was, that fucking coffee was amazing. And he was like, it's the same as it's been all week, mate. But I could just taste it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, coffee that then grew into, not Red Bull. What's the fucking drink I drink?
Monster Energy.
Monster Energy. I had the sugar-free one, though, because I like my teeth. And we got to, 2 years in, and I became a bit of a connoisseur. I've actually got 8 coffee machines in my house now. Bean to cup ones.
8?
Yeah. We've just been to Cyprus, mate, last week.
Connoisseur, that's an obsession.
We went last week, and we got there, and we always rent a villa when we go away, because we like to cook our own food, so it was self-catering. Opens a cupboard, and there's one of them fucking coffee press things. They're shit. They make shit coffee. And I said, well, I'm going down to the local coffee shop, and we're in a village in the middle of nowhere in Cyprus, so there was no Starbucks or anything like that. So I go down into a local coffee shop and ordered a coffee, and like Cypriots like espresso, and I like espresso. A English espresso, not a Cypriot one that's got half inch of fucking mud in the bottom of the cup that my father-in-law eats, by the way.
Wow.
He drinks the coffee and then he chews the shit in the bottom. Whoa!
That's brutal.
Yeah. So I said to her, I'm going to go and buy a coffee machine. She was like, you're not having another coffee machine? I said, I'm going to go get one for the week we're here, and I'll leave it here. So I went to a Cypriot supermarket and bought an espresso machine with a bunch of pods, like 36 pods or something. I got it back to the place, and we had it all week. And it got to the Friday when we were coming home, and I said, Lise, I can fit this in my bag. She's going, you're not taking it home? It was 90 quid, just leave it here. I said, no, we've got another 7 at home. We don't need another coffee machine. We've got 3 in here. And she squeezed it into my bag, and she's going, you're not bringing it? I said, I'm bringing it now. So I wrapped it up in a towel and put it in the case, and home with us it came. So yeah, I got another coffee machine.
Got another coffee machine.
Yeah. I think we've got one in every room now. Yeah, bean to cup job. I love them. Love them. So, you mentioned about others, managing others with drink problems in your business.
Yeah, drink and drugs, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So, I think the first thing I would say is that there's difference between management and leadership.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I've only learnt that through the personal development. I never got taught that. Like in any kind of like management training or any of that stuff, like even the ILM stuff, I don't even talk about it. It's just about managing people, which is nuts really when you think about it, because actually it's far better and far more empowering to do leadership than management. But yeah, I've had multiple businesses where I've been involved. I had one in particular which delivered repairs and maintenance in the social housing sector.
Oh, that's a tough gig, that.
Yeah, 120 technicians on the road. Oh. And I got headhunted to go and work there. I was working somewhere else, and I employed this contractor. We went into a JV partnership, because I don't know if you remember when social housing launched like the Decent Home Standard.
Yeah, that's when I joined the industry.
I thought you would, yeah. So we were doing decent homes, kitchens and bathrooms, making Buckingham Palace money at Bermondsey Spec for years, and then all of a sudden they were like, no, you need to feel some pain now. So they started talking about doing repairs and maintenance in it as well. So we JV'd with an R&M company. Anyway, I then exited that business. The R&M company were like, we really like how you treated us as a person. We felt like the negotiation was really fair, and it really felt like a win-win. Why don't you come and work for us? So I went to them as an ops manager for a while, and it was quite apparent that there was an issue with drugs. Like, I mean, I wasn't even smoking cigarettes at this point, but if I walked out into the yard, sometimes you could smell cannabis. And one of the techs came back one day, and there was an issue with some damage to their van. It was a roofing team. They've got like a long wheelbase, high top van. So I went out to have a look at it, and this van was full paraphernalia for smoking joints. And I've smoked enough puff in my time as a youngster to know what it looks like, and it stunk. I was like, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's really commonplace. I went, are you for real? Like, that's a company van being driven around with someone under the influence of cannabis, and you think that's acceptable? Like, forget all the branding shit. That, like, the guy could kill someone. Like, literally, within a heartbeat. I know what cannabis does to a system. I'm not stupid. So I was like, right, what are we going to do? And when I went there, I built a really good rapport and a really good relationship with the head of HR, an amazing lady from Scotland called Anna, who I still get on really well with now, even years later. We were like, well, what are we going to do? I said, I'm of a mind to bring in mandatory drug testing for everyone. She was like, what? Well, you seriously want to do that? I said, yeah, I do. I said, my gut tells me that's what we should do. And she was like, okay. So we had a massive series of meetings over probably, felt like 3 months. It was probably 4 to 6 weeks. She's like, right, but we need to be fair to people, like human rights and stuff. I said, well, so we reached a compromise where we said to everyone, right, in 3 months' time, this is what we're going to do. Make no mistake, it's going to happen. But if you come to us now in confidence and tell us there's an issue, we'll help you. We'll give you whatever support we need within reason to help you and to get you through that, and basically get you off of whatever it is you're taking. And we had 6 people come to us within 24 hours.
Mad.
Like 4 for cocaine and 2 for cannabis. Like,
with issues with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but real big issues that they were like, do you know what, we want to sort this out. Like, and also all of the debt and stuff that goes with that, because it's quite a toxic environment to be in. Tried to help them all. Fast forward, day one, me and the MD and the HR lady, we all did our drugs tests, because we said we've got to lead by example. We can't have the technicians thinking, whether they're male or female, doesn't matter. We can't have them thinking that the management are above and are out of this. So we did our test first, went through, and then we said, right, we'll do random testing.
Did you all pass?
Yeah, I made sure. Yeah, no, we all passed.
Yeah.
So we all passed, and then we did 10, and then every week, and we found loads of people.
Yeah.
Loads of people with low-level cannabis. That was really, really common. But we also found people with Class A coke. And it was really hard, because one of them was a direct report.
Yeah.
And I will share the story with you. So he was a direct report of mine. He was on a salary of almost 70 grand a year, estranged from his wife, and he'd got kids. And his coke level was way, way, way off the scale when he tested. He just dropped his kids off at school.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Some people need it to function, don't they? And then don't even realise that they're actually under the influence. That was maybe booze, that.
Yeah, I was the same.
Yeah.
So, and I was like that when I was taking drugs as well. So I could totally get where it was at. So we're like, right, we need to suspend him. Because like they're basically, you do a test in the room and then you have to do a lab test to make sure it's military grade, like fine. So we did that, suspended him, and I spent 3 days and I didn't sleep a wink. Because he was a direct report and he was someone that in 6 months I'd worked really hard to try and develop and bring him through. I found it really hard, and I had to play a game of guess who in my head, and I had to take his face away and say, forget the person, but the role, what is the right answer to that? And I had to take his job. I had to dismiss him, and it was horrible. It's one of the most, like, I found that harder than making 100 people redundant.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that.
It was really awful. And then I got a message from him probably 3 years ago now. He's moved away, completely rebuilt his life somewhere totally different. He's back with his wife, because he lost his wife, his kids, everything. Back, and he said, do you know what, it's the best thing you've ever done. Thank you so much. But at the time, it was so hard. Like, I mentally rehearsed that in my head thousands of times. I had 2 sessions with my NLP coach about it, and I was going through like disassociation techniques, taking myself away to like the corner of the room, like, you know, like where the CCTV camera would be, and I'd like play it through in my head like it was a soap opera. Like trying to, because I've had so much training on contracts and negotiation and stuff, trying to like almost like play it out like a game of chess. Like if I do this, what's going to happen? If that happens, what could then happen? Then that just becomes like a monster spidergram that kettles your Swede. But that's how much time I spent in doing it. And would I do it any differently? No, I don't think I would, because I think there's lots of people out there that say a lot of stuff that don't actually then deliver it. If you're going to put your nuts or your cock on the block and say, that's what we're doing, you've then got to deliver it. So we said it's zero tolerance. If we'd have then gone, oh, that's right, bless him, I nearly said his name then. really, nearly. We would have been wrong. We had to follow through and say it's zero tolerance. But it's a massive subject, and I've had a lot of conversations with people in big blue chip companies, and like a lot of big blue chip companies, they don't when they do mandatory drug testing on site. Do you know there's a trade they don't test?
Gone. Scaffolders.
No, ground workers.
Ground workers.
They don't test ground workers because they know most of them will be positive for cannabis. So they don't test them; they exclude them from the test data.
Because they lose too many people.
They lose too many people.
That's crackers, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I had a conversation with a scaffolder who's got an up-and-coming YouTube channel who's going to do an interview on my podcast. And we were talking about that because he's really, he's got a really good brand. He's really trying to grow his company. Like, he's creating opportunity for people that have been in and out of prison and stuff. And he's like, not all trades are bad. Like, everybody says all scaffolders are sniff heads, piss heads. They're not. Like, some of them, like the new modern trades that are coming through, actually, like, you won't see them in the pub. You'll see them in a gym.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with 2 scaffolders last week, and they were talking about different prices of different coin and crypto and shit.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, you'd have been talking about where you were going to score your gear from. Now you're talking about what you're investing in. It is changing, but there's still so much of it out there.
Yeah.
And so many people use it, and I mean, construction's got the biggest mental health crisis going because most people are self-employed, so they don't know literally where their next paycheck's going to come from. Quite a lot of them work away from home and live in temporary accommodation, all of which plays massive havoc on their family unit, which means that they're in shit relationships. So all of those things together, it's not really any wonder why people are actually like using the substances that they're using.
Yeah.
And I think we need to look at the whole picture. You can't just say anybody that's on site is going to be kicked off site, because actually, well, what are the real things that are actually causing it?
That's what we've got to get to. Same as fucking damp. Let's look at let's find the cause.
Yeah.
Before putting a plaster on the thing. You know, why is this person behaving like that? Like, it wasn't until I stopped drinking that I realised that my booze was purely through unmanaged stress.
Yeah, that's it.
That's exactly what it was. And I believed at the time that was the solution. I genuinely thought
you do,
that. I hear it often. I can hear him saying it now. Friend and colleague of mine. He always says, still drinks probably most days, and he always says, I just have one daily to blow the cobwebs off. Like, that statement, that sentence, it doesn't do that. Like, what's the cobweb?
What is the cobweb? Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've got 2. So when I worked as a trainee site manager, the job I took over from, there was a young Irish lad on it. And he was from Ireland, literally come over on a boat almost. And he was part of a group, and I've never done any research. I thought Pioneer was a concrete company from Birmingham. It turns out it's an organisation in Ireland that are teetotal. So he was completely teetotal. I mean, I had a conversation with him one day, right? It's how green the geezer was, right? Because I was like a trainee site manager, I wasn't earning a lot of money, so I used to like take pasta and chicken and stuff for like my lunch. I'm sitting in this porter cabin because welfare was not great, so I'm sitting in a porter cabin on 4 bags of cement because I've got long legs to eat my lunch, and I'm sitting chowing down this box of pasta, and this kid says to me, "What are you eating?" "I'm eating my lunch, mate. What's the problem? Like, I've done everything I need to." He's like, "No, what are you eating?" "I'm eating my lunch, pasta and chicken." It's like, "What is that?" He'd never even seen pasta. Like, never seen pasta. Like, never seen pasta. Yeah. But in Ireland, there's like this organisation called the Pioneers who celebrate the fact that they're teetotal.
Yeah.
So that's one of my big memories of having a conversation with someone around alcohol in construction. And the other one is, do you remember, I think you will remember, when O'Rourke was O'Rourke before it became Lang O'Rourke.
Yep.
And they were a concrete frame sub, really.
Yeah.
So they used to do a lot of frames, and when I worked at Lang's, they were our framing contractor. And there was a guy in there, I won't name him, but he was a massive character, and he was head of the concrete finishing. He was like 6'9", and he got hands like shovels, and he wasn't afraid to use them either. And he was the one that used to take us to the pub for 5 pints of Guinness at lunchtime. And we had this new trainee engineer come on site who was teetotal, and he said to him, like, "Why do you drink So you've got this like young ginger engineer who's about 20. This geezer's in his late 50s, proper staunch paddy geezer. He ain't going to be questioned by no one. Probably not even Ray and Des O'Rourke, let alone this like kid. And he went, it's this fucking simple, son. And he went, I'm better and more use when I'm 16 pints in than you are sober. So fuck off, you're sacked. And sacked him.
Hell.
Just sacked him. There and then on the spot.
For not being part of the...
Yeah.
Fucking, that is mental.
But it was such a really big conversation that I still remember it to this day, as if I was stood in that drawing office looking at the bending schedules on the drawing table.
Yeah.
Mad conversation, and language is really powerful. I was talking to Gemma about it in the car.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, mate.
But stress is the biggest. Stress in construction is huge.
Yeah, I remember once seeing a statistic that it was actually quantity surveying. The stat I saw, I think it was in Construction News or one of the magazines, that quantity surveying is officially the most stressful profession on the planet.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I'm not surprised.
And they lose more individuals to suicide in that as a profession than any other.
Doesn't surprise me.
It's interesting.
Well, you've got massive pressure. I mean, I've got challenges with a budget on a project we're working at the moment as a non-exec, and you've got estimators that are trying to put together a price based on dog shit information quite often.
Yeah.
Sometimes there'll be a handover, sometimes there won't. There's a massive kind of like, we've got to keep the client happy at all costs, so we're never going to ask any questions. We're not going to submit any TQs.
Yeah.
We're not going to put any RFIs in because we don't want to look like we're being a pain in the arse. Then they'll go into contracts and no one will read the contract properly. And then the QS is told, right, that 4% margin's now got to be 16% higher because we need 20%. Go and find it. And you've got some 20-year-old
just described the
kid.
entire industry on every job I've ever been on.
I've been around a bit.
Yeah,
but you've then got some kid that's, and I work with lots of QSs, some really young have just come through, others like in their late 60s. But most of the bigger contractors tend to employ the younger QSs because they're cheaper and they see them as greener, more hungry, and more malleable probably. That's told, okay, so that cost plan now, forget that, you've got to go and buy that at 16% less.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure that any overspend on the prelims doesn't affect the budget. So actually they're trying to find 20%.
Yeah.
So they're going back out to the supply chain. So all the poor fuckers that have bid the job are now like, well, you're now in a new competition. And well, hold on a minute, we just spent £2,000 pricing that one. Oh, what, and now you've moved the goalpost.
Yeah.
So they're getting all this shit from above, like, you've got to make us more money. They're getting shit from the supply chain and and the client's going, well, why have you not procured this yet?
Yeah.
So it's little wonder why, and they raise the thin margins.
Yeah.
And then you've got things like Late Payment of Commercial Debts Act, Housing Grants Act. I've seen people lose their job because they got hit with a last minute smash and grab adjudication for £250,000 for windows that were never even supplied. But they timed it just right and they got paid out.
And yet if we priced it as it should be priced right at the outset and made all the information required, we won't win the job. So it's like catch-22, isn't it?
It is catch-22, yeah. But that's when I think it comes down to relationship and having confidence in your offer to be able to say, actually, do you know what? This is why you should use us. It's like we both work with Matt, right?
Yeah.
You've worked with him for years, I'm just starting working with him.
Yeah.
Massive fan, because I think if you can do that and really properly articulate what your offer is, anybody with half a brain is going to make that buying decision because they're like, what is the sensible solution? I don't want to go anywhere else because actually you're doing everything I want you to do.
Yeah, exactly that. Like if the service provider can demonstrate all of the value that you need as the consumer in their offer, the buying decision now becomes a no-brainer, and that's how it should be. Like, I know what you need. You need X, Y, and Z. That's what you want to buy from me. I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to give you A, B, and C as well. Like, what questions have you got now? Like, everything you wanted is there. I'm going to deliver on that and more, and this is the fee. And if you can do that,
that's the thing.
Demonstrating all the value to the buyer, the buying decision should always be with the buyer.
Yeah, absolutely, God.
Yeah,
but so many people get that wrong.
You're fucking hell, mate.
I know you've got your subject about like the whole, and I have this, and so many times I've wanted to chime in, but I've got so much respect for you. I don't want to like take your post off in a different direction. But we can have that conversation now because it can always be edited out. So I think it's a really good topic. I think there's a whole different angle to that. And that's price fixing.
Yeah.
Because that is rife. It's rife in big contracts, but it's also quite apparent in smaller stuff because trades quite often use the same merchants. So they're having conversations about setting prices, and I've seen people at networking events having conversations about, oh yeah, well, I'll put this price in for that, and people have got no idea whether the lowest price is the right price or whether it's just somebody going, no, we'll just put it in, but we don't include anything, and they don't know whether the high price is a cover price for the middle price, but the middle price actually should be 10 grand lower than it actually is, but they know that the lower price is hanging out.
Oh, you're talking about price comparison when I do that? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I talk about with that message I'm sharing there with, like, let's have a quote of 20 grand, 30 grand, and 40 grand. Like, 20 grand is only the cheapest because someone else went in at 30 and 40.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 40 is only the most expensive because someone went in at 30 and 20. And on another day, 40 could be the cheapest because somebody else went in at 50 and 60.
Yeah.
But the message I'm trying to share with that is that those comparison things that can't be made are wholly down to the vast majority of clients that don't provide a baseline to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
So the fucking number that was shared was just a guess anyway.
It's a guess, yeah.
And so
the inaccurate contrast frames
exactly
that mean nothing.
that. So the cheaper of the three in both of those examples, it's not the cheaper of anything because the other two don't fucking mean anything.
No.
So all three of them are just numbers that don't mean nothing.
All just meaningless numbers.
So when a client's going out there and saying, look, I want to get this refurb done, and someone says, yeah, 20k, and someone else says 30, and they go with the 20 because it was cheaper than the 30, is foolhardy. It's also foolhardy to go with a 40 because they think they're going to get a better result than the 20. None of them numbers mean absolutely fuck all because they're not based on anything other than a refurb. But it fucking triggers me massively.
Like, I mean,
we probably tell.
It does. I mean, we had an F-type Jag, and we just got rid of it because the engine was eating itself. It's like a renowned problem with JLR products. Their Ingenium engine's shit. And someone was talking about it the other day, and I said, but the thing is, like, they're trying to do something to fix it. I said, the fucking construction industry is doing this every single day to itself, perpetuating to carry on doing it, because all you've got to look at is the comments on people. Like, when you put that post out there, all the trades are like, well, I bet they went with the cheapest price.
Yeah,
well, you put a problem with a job on there, oh, they went with the cheapest price.
That bugs the fuck out of me, that is.
How do you know that? Like, you're not even qualified to have there's not enough information to make that assessment.
Yeah.
You've assumed they went with the cheapest price. Well, maybe they didn't.
But maybe they did.
They might have done.
Both are irrelevant.
Of course it has. None of
Whether
it
it went with the cheapest or the most expensive, the problem still exists. And it's got fuck all to do with the price that went in to begin with. People use prices as a benchmark of quality, and it's fucking wrong. It's stupid. Absolutely stupid, unless it's a product. But with a service, I think with a product, I think price does come quality. Example, DeWalt's better than Parkside.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a service, like you can't measure the quality of what that service will be based on the price. That price is merely a reflection or a mirror of the person that gave it to you, is how they've valued their own self-worth. That's it, nothing else.
Yeah, totally.
That's it.
I mean, I had a conversation with a guy last week, I think, last Friday. Really, really nice guy, really knowledgeable. He's managing a project at £1 million, and he's charged himself out of 200 quid a day as a project manager. The geezer's got about 16 letters after his name. Like,
yeah, that's just self-worth.
Exactly,
Again, but someone would look at that and go, 200 quid, that's cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Because somebody else that's done a 2-day property course is charging 500. That's just got more confidence. Yeah. That does not mean that the 500 quid guy is going to deliver a better
no, of course it doesn't.
Service than the other.
But it's the first thing that people use as a measure, isn't it?
Fucking does,
which is just insane.
It does. It's crazy. And people do it with training courses. His training course must be better than his because it was more expensive.
I know.
I'm joining that community because it's more expensive. I'm joining that mastermind. It's 30 grand and his is 20, so mine's better. It's fucking not.
No, it's not.
It's just not.
Because it's not.
Look at the results that the customer's getting. That's what you got to look at. Yeah. That's how you measure quality.
Exactly.
Fucking crazy. I could talk about this for fucking hours.
Yeah, same.
Hours. I mean, where does that come from? How? For me, I've got my opinion on it, and mine is that when we are upset with the level of service that's been delivered, it is purely down to when it came to the sale before the fulfillment. So let's say we've had a service delivered over the last 12 months, person gets to the end and goes, that was shit. Like, that only happens if an expectation was set in the marketing and selling to begin with.
Yeah, over-promised and under-delivered.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. And that's what pisses people off. Yeah, when they don't get what they thought they were going to get.
Yeah.
And that's never the client's fault, by the way.
That's not at all. That's not a client issue. That's the issue of whoever it is, whether it's an individual business, whatever it is, corporate, doesn't matter. It's actually setting expectations, saying, look, this is what you're going to get. Yeah. And that's what you've got to deliver. And you need to be, I mean, we talked off camera before about over-delivering, didn't we? And you've always got to be, at that point, you've got to come from a mindset, right, That's what you bought, but this is what I'm going to do as extras.
Yeah. I love over delivering.
Same.
Absolutely. We're always doing it. Just last week, like all our members of our community group, we took them to Bear Grylls in fucking Birmingham, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, down to Birmingham for the weekend. That's not part of a sale. It's not part of the program. It's the day we put on for everybody. They all come along. We had some higher ups. We had a parachute jump, and then we went. Did we go for dinner? We didn't at this one, but we often go for dinner as well. They're now planning a go-kart day down in Lincoln. Again, they don't know about it until it's booked, unless they hear this before the event happens. We're going to Slovakia, Poland next year for a hill climb. We've done Ben Nevis, Snowdon, Scafell Pike, Helvellyn, Four Peaks in Derbyshire, and all these things they're almost dropped on them. Now, if you said in the sale, what do I get for my money for joining your mastermind program? Well, you get this walk, and if you say that in the sale, and then for whatever reason it doesn't happen, maybe the guide's ill, there's bad weather,
anything can get in the way.
like that's going to cause an issue now.
Of course it is, yeah.
Like, I'd rather say, this is the product, this is the fee, and then we ram stuff on top.
Yeah.
That's what I love doing. That fucking love it. Makes you feel good as well.
Oh, massively. It definitely does. I mean, I've just had it with someone. We've had to literally reprogram a massive job. And they were like, I've sent this invoice. I was like, that's fine. You're on my top level. It's included.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't get that experience before. I'm like, well, I don't know what experience you got before, but I've just told you it's included. I'm like, well, why would you not charge us? Would you like me to say it again?
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it?
It's how you leave people feeling, and that for me is what it's all about. You know, you want people to, I want people to go, do you know what? We had such a good experience. I'd actually share that with someone else. It's why I love our Trustpilot feedback and our reviews and stuff, because it means something, and I know yours do as well. It's why you do it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If you could change one thing in the construction industry, what would it be?
What would it be? More security around employment.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason I say
people
that,
employed
for
by
trades.
employers.
For trades. And the reason I say that is because it's the biggest contributory factor to mental health. And I think that's a massive thing, to be given the opportunity to change one thing. So if that would be my answer in construction, if it was one superpower, it would be that every human being on this planet had to listen back to what they were going to say before the words came out of their mouth. But when they listened to it back, they had to imagine they were their mother. Because I think a lot of the toxic bullshit that exists in this world, not just in like property and construction, would actually vaporise if we had to think about what we're going to say and the impact. Because people are very quick to sort of like pontificate and jump in with an opinion, most of which are unqualified. Totally. Before even engaging their brain. So I think if people had to actually think about stuff before they actually hit the volume button.
2 ears and one mouth for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you know British Steel? I know they're not called that anymore. My dad was a manager. That was his entire career, was at British Steel. They had a company policy. You just reminded me of it. Their company policy, you can't reply to any email in the same day.
Oh, wow.
So if an email lands, you had to wait till the following day before you answered it. And it takes away that
reacting rather than responding.
Toxic response. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm a twat for that. Fuck you.
I've got a client at the moment who's got a client who's a domestic homeowner, and they're doing, I think it's about 200 grand this extension, and I'm literally going batshit crazy because the guy's on site running his construction firm, like supervising what's going on, because it's quite a big project. And the guy's like, well, you haven't replied to my email from an hour ago. Like, I've had a conversation with you on site to address these 3 issues. The work is actually done, but I haven't replied to your email. Well, it's not good enough. Your communication standards are shit, mate. Like, I've talked to you about this one-to-one. Like, what better? Or what, you want me to go and jump and send you an email back?
It's
fucking insane.
It's setting expectations, isn't it? Right from the off. Right from the very off.
I think a lot of it comes from, and especially like coming back to that point about like people's like challenges around price and stuff. I think there is a massive kind of scarcity mindset. Construction is the first industry to go into recession ever. The history books prove that, and it's the last one to ever come out. So wherever we are in the economic cycle, there is always that kind of like, well, and most trades think like a week or 2 in advance. They're not planning like a month. They're not. I mean, like, how many times do you get trades that I need a sub?
Yeah.
Like, I've actually got to a point with some of them, I'm like, just keep the 20 quid, because I no longer know if it's yours or mine.
Yeah.
Because it's like, here's it back on a Friday, oh, can I have it on a Monday? I'm like, just never ask me for money again.
Yeah.
And I think that, if you could fix that, that would go a real long way.
Yeah. I mean, one of my trading programs where I help trades is exactly what you've just described. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you work with trades, you teach them to become developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
sometimes,
yeah,
not all of them. Sometimes it's just about improving their construction business. But
yeah, so I've focused on that.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that was I see a lot from Andy Hubbard, that he's turning trades into developers, which I understand. And I think with that comes a lot of challenges. Obviously, they are all in their own mind and just the way that they feel. I don't have the money to be a developer, and I think
money's a big limiting belief.
Yeah, that's the phrase I was looking for. Sorry, limiting belief that we don't have the money, so we can't be a developer, and therefore dismiss Andy's message and dismiss that sort of like opportunity, if you like.
Yep.
Which is the reason I went down the road I went down. Okay, so you don't want to be a developer, but however, I want to help you in changing your construction business from being a fucking sole trader.
I'm going to cut in there.
Go on.
Because you said that they don't want to do it. I think they do want to do it. They think they can't because they don't think they've got the money to do it, and that's two very different things.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. You've thrown me off fucking track now, you twat. Yeah, so the belief that they hold that they can't do it. Yeah, so for me it was, let's help them build their construction business to then later on in their careers, maybe let's work for them for 12 months. Let's build them a solid trading business where we're running at a profit. We're off the tools. Let's look at sending them over to Andy or another similar type of course where they'll learn to become a developer off the back of running a solid business. Because I see so many folks get, I'm going to use the word seduced by 6-figure profits from one deal. I know it's possible, you know it's possible, but this whole limiting belief piece again just becomes like, can I do this?
Yeah.
Just questioning themselves, questioning the marketing message that they're seeing. And whilst you're still on the tools, I believe, whilst you're still on the tools chasing work on a Monday for what I'm going to be doing on Friday to get an income to pay my rent, I think that's a big leap for a person to take psychologically.
Like a quantum leap. Yeah, it's huge.
Quantum leap, yeah. So I tried to bridge that gap with my training with the trades. I mean, it's huge. Getting off the tools is the fucking first step for me. I don't think you can do both. Genuinely believe you can't. And I have this argument with the fucking trades all the time.
Yeah.
I do both. You fucking don't, mate.
No.
You just don't.
Because if you're looking at that, going, I've laid 700. I'm talking about Supercharge. I've laid 700 bricks in there. Brilliant. Which one? A hero medal.
Yeah.
Great. Do you know, these people don't do that in a day. But if you're looking at, you're thinking about, right, have I got enough compo? Where's my line? Right, and my profile's moved.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, where's that forklift coming from?
You're not thinking
about actually, my VAT bill's due in 2 weeks. How much is on zero?
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, I've got 60 grand outstanding. I've got a cement bill to pay. I've got this to pay. That van needs servicing. I've got to meet the accountant. They're not thinking about those business level decisions.
Yeah, and all that series of questions that you've just asked there, they're all going on in the mind the whole time. They're trying to lay fucking bricks. Yeah. You can't concentrate on both.
You can't concentrate. You can't. It's like people. One of the questions I get asked a lot was, what was the hardest transition? And for me, it was to go from working on the tools to being a site manager. Because working on the tools, literally, we had 3 gangs at one point. So I knew I was still on site, but I knew we were labour only. So as long as I knew that they'd got diesel in the van, they'd got digging tools, no one had broken into their van and nicked their gear, they'd be on site and they'd be fine. But as a site manager, I was thinking, right, what's happening? Is the programme this week sorted? Is everyone turning up this week? That was the first hour of Monday, phone calls and stuff. And then the rest of the week was right, what's happening next week and next month? And then when I went from site manager to contracts manager, it was okay, right, what am I thinking about now? Okay, what's happening this quarter? Yeah. And then when I went into the commercials, it was about, okay, right, financially now, what does that look like in terms of P&L management accounts?
Yeah.
But the hardest leap in my head was definitely from tools.
Yeah,
the
journey you've just described is you zooming out from that.
Yes, exactly.
Getting out of the tactical weeds and managing the regiment. It's the hardest transition for me was military to civilian, having to retrain my whole fucking brain.
I can imagine
everything.
And there's not. Am I right in thinking there's not a lot of support around that?
That's a really good question. When I know what the modern day rhetoric is, and I think that the support or the lack thereof comes with things like housing, employment for those that fell on hard times. I think that's the one that's getting called out. But the message that's getting called out is being blanketed across the whole like service leaver space. Now, for me, I was looked after really, really fucking well when I left. I'm not special. I'm not different to anybody else. Because I get given a task and I just fucking do it. Example is when I left the forces. So when I left, they put you through this thing called a CTW, a career transition workshop.
That's one of the reasons I asked the question, because I know someone that
yeah,
so had a really positive
you sit in a
exit.
classroom, and it was a 5-day course at the time. I left in 2007, don't know whether it still exists. We sat in a classroom, and the guy goes around the room, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And if you don't have an answer, they don't let you leave, because they've got a duty of care to make sure you're not just going to become a burden on society. Again, I'm going back some time. I don't know whether it's still the case. And he went around the room and he was, what are you going to do? What are you going to? And he sat in that room. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. I was an army bricklayer. I'd rose to the ranks of section commander, which is the equivalent of a project manager as a civvy. And he taught us how to write a CV, not a car, French car. So we sat there writing our CVs, and he was like, you know, you're suited to construction management. The guy sat next to me, a bloke called Joe. That's what he was going to do. So I copied him. And I thought, he wants to be a project manager, fuck it, I'll do that. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, to be honest. And I applied for a job in Scunthorpe. I was in Twickenham at the time. And I got it. I got this job. Just off the back of this workshop. I started in the job. The guy that hired me just loved the fact that I was ex-army. You know, his view was, I'm going to be disciplined, I'm going to be routine driven, I'm going to be procedural, of which I am, all those things. And I started the job, and it was just a step. You took, like I said, you do this, and that's all I did. I just did what I was told.
Yeah, follow the process.
That's what the army's trained me to do for the last 14 years. So that transition, the hardest part of the transition goes back to what I was saying about the age thing, was me going into a leadership role at 32 when my reports were double my age. That was really, really fucking tough. And going from socially was the hardest thing. That was the hardest transition, going from a pisshead soldier to being a pisshead civvy, thinking I can behave the same. Like, you just can't. You can't turn up in your local and trash the gaff and piss on people. That's just not a thing.
It's just not happening, is it?
Like in the army, that was every Saturday night.
Yeah.
You know?
I've spent a bit of time on it. I've done 2 big MOD projects, and it's like, I remember we did HMS Warrior, and that was, do you remember when that Mad Dog 2020 shit was about?
Man, that was my first alcoholic drink as a kid, that was.
And Chrono, I'm showing my age then. So when we
You're older than me.
When we did Warrior, we used to stand, like, the NAFI used to have like a drinking session on a Thursday night, and it was Matlows and Marines on this base. It was absolute carnage. It was that bad. They banned Nutty Numbers, Kronenberg 1664. They took it out of commission. And they banned Mad Dog 2020, because literally, I mean, there'd be like 30, 40 of us builders in there, like just proper getting on it, because it was like wages day. Mate, we were nothing. Like, these geezers were like throwing bar stools at each other, smashing the top off a bar stool, ironing their mate out with it because like they'd not bought a rat. It was mental. It was like the Wild West.
Yeah,
so I can see what you mean.
It is a tough transition.
If that's your what you're used to then go into
not only is it what you're used to, it's what you've been trained to do for such a big part of your life. Like, I went there as a young man. I was 19 when I joined. So my whole of my adult life was, I'm a Royal Engineer, and that was my career, that was my background, that was my identity, that was my everything. And then, like, that was your rhetoric.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a trainer, I'm a property developer, I'm a property investor, I'm a coach, I'm a whatever. I am a Royal Engineer.
Royal
and then
Engineer.
Suddenly I'm not. So you're going from that into, I'm now a project manager. I didn't fucking know what I was. I didn't know what the role was. I didn't know what I was doing when I first started. I remember my first day, I met this guy, Tony Lemon. He's from Lincoln, actually. He was my manager. Don't even know if he listens to this. I hope he does. He took me under his wing when I first started. I remember knocking on his office door. I was like, Tony, you're the squaddy, aren't you? And I was like, fucking here we go. Come on. And I got into his office and he had this fucking pink shirt on, mate, Ralph Lauren shirt. I'll never forget it. Pink Ralph Lauren shirt on, and he smelt like a fucking woman. He had this aftershave on, and he just stunk in this little office. He smelt like you're supposed to be a builder, mate. I mean, you're working for a construction business.
Smelled like he walked out of love.
And he was like, fuck it. Yeah, it's just like that, yeah. And you go into the office and he's like, fucking, what's that smell? And I was like, what do you want me to do? And he goes, well, you're a project manager, fucking get on with it. And it was like, what?
Yeah.
What? And then I was introduced to a guy called Murdoch, who was my first site manager. He was a Scottish lad. Really helpful he was, and it was like Tony's told me I'm your new manager. Like, let me help you. What do you need from me? He goes, I'll tell you what we'll do. I won't try and do a Scottish accent. No, fuck it, I will. He said, I'll tell you what we'll do, pal. Did I nail it?
No.
No, right. I won't do it again. Then. We'll go on site, and he took me around his what we used to call a stream, which was how many properties he had open per se, being worked on, decent homes again, and he had like 20 open projects, and he walked me around them all, talking through the phases and all the stuff, and it was like yeah. Like I just plugged my procedural discipline brain into a process of what he was doing, and it was quite simple for me to follow and see what they were up to, and then. I got back to the office. Murdoch then introduced me to, who was the other guy? Bill was the other guy. Bill Smith is the other guy's name was. And I had 3 of them. And they all had 20 projects open. So now I'm faced with, I've got 60 projects
60
open.
opens.
And then it was like, well, right, where's all the staff, the tradesmen? Where are all they? Where's the brickies? Where's the chippies? They're all subcontract. Okay, where's the, can I see the contract orders? Can I see the spec? What are they here to do? Program. They're all like, fuck's one of them? And mate, I'm talking a fucking £100 million company.
Yeah.
They didn't even know what it was, these old boys.
Yeah.
Like, program, what the fuck is that?
It's not taught.
What are you on about spec?
It's
what
crazy.
What do you mean? They're just doing a kitchen. No.
Yeah, it's not how it works, mate.
Well, and then I'm starting to look at variation orders that are coming in from the subbies.
Subbies, yeah.
I was only there a month. And it was like, why isn't that included? Why are we getting extras for fucking rubbing plaster down that they've plastered?
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on here? And then it became like, hang on a minute, there's some serious fucking list going on here now.
This is going, yeah.
You know, all the managers are in fucking brand new cars paid for, and it's like, interesting.
I was thinking of Paco Rabanne.
So I go back to the office with all the perfume, and I've got a bit of an issue with this. How my 3 streams have been run here. I've got no spec, no program, no cost schedule, nothing. We're just delivering fucking jobs on phone calls. There's no accountability. There's nothing. Like, I need some sort of structure and plan, disciplines, procedures. I need something. We've got another site in Grimsby. We want you to go and run that. What? And I got fucking outed onto another job for calling it out. They moved me site to another decent homes projects for North East Lincolnshire Council, which was in Grimsby. This one was in Scunny, the first one. And there was another guy called Tony, not the same Tony Priestley, this guy's name was, and he was running the job in Grimsby, who I immediately got on with. He actually lives in this village up the road. And I was telling the story of what happened on the previous job, and he was very much, we fucking need you here. And I got 10 streams there. So here's 10 foremen, 10 site managers that you're now going to work with. You've got these 10 streams, and it was running like fucking clockwork. Absolutely brilliant to see, a spec being managed, programs being written and managed.
You can do massive numbers if you set up properly.
Yeah, and as long as you get all that in place.
Yeah, that's it.
It's easy.
It's the upfront project management piece that's crucial.
Totally.
Getting the procurement done properly.
Yeah, totally. We had dedicated QS, dedicated assistant QS, we had office staff, and it was a slick, well-oiled machine. And I slotted into that really, really well. And then I got poached back after 3 years. The original site that shipped me out to Grimsby, they had 2 high-rises to do in the town centre. And they brought me back.
Different beast doing high-rise.
Yeah, they brought me back. I had a fucking death on that job, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they brought me back into the fold in Scunthorpe, and then I delivered these projects. Yeah, so I delivered the high-rise. Successfully, eventually. As I say, death on the job, so there's much more to talk about with that, of course. And I'd love to do a part 2 if you're up for it.
Yeah, definitely.
To discuss that, and we can get into some nuts and bolts of projects.
High-rise stuff's totally different. Vertical logistics is like people don't understand.
Yeah, it's mad. I could just go on to another topic now of other high-rises I've done. But let's wrap it up there, mate, and we'll.
Cool.
We've done it for a long
brilliant.
time. thanks for coming up, making the trip.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for sticking around till the end. All the social handles from both of us are below. I'll see you in the next one.